Welcome to everyone joining today in Rackham Auditorium and to everyone joining via live stream. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy days to be here and for prioritizing this important diversity, equity, and inclusion issue. I'm one of the Ashleys, Ashley Bates. I'm a white, cisgender woman in my 30s with brown hair and a ponytail. I use she, her pronouns. I do not have a disability and have made many mistakes myself related to disability inclusivity. Co-organizing this event has been a powerful learning experience for me. Before I hand things off to the other Ashley, I would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors. Our funders include the International Institute and its Inclusive Culture Liaisons Committee, which initially proposed this event as a summer staff training with a target of only 50 attendees. The Disability Culture at U of M Committee, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the Global Scholars Program, the Council for Disability Concerns, the School of Law, the LSA Dean's Office, the Residential College, the Department of American Culture, the Barger Leadership Institute, and the School of Information. And now I'm honored to introduce Ashley Wiseman. Ashley is the Associate Director of the LSA Global Scholars Program and a member of the group Disability Culture at U of M. She frequently guest lectures on disability culture and identity and is involved in several committees working toward improving campus climate for individuals with disabilities.
Rob. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Rob. I think it's Rob back there. And thank you, Ashley Bates, for having the idea for this event and for your tireless efforts over the past several weeks. So Ashley took the lead coordinating all of the time-sensitive logistics as we saw our SVPs climb to over 550 people. So she's been incredible to work with. Can we just give her a round of applause? And thank you as well to all of the support folks who are making this possible right now. Our ASL interpreters, our CART typist, Sue, all of the tech people and folks making live stream work, thank you so much. I'm the other Ashley Wiseman. For the ASL interpreters, I'm number 1. I am a white cisgender woman in my 30s with long dark brown hair and glasses. I use a power wheelchair and I have my golden retriever service dog with me. Her name is Reason. She might poke her head out to the left of the table at some point today. In just a moment, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. But first, I want to welcome everyone who is joining us online and everyone here in person. We are grateful to be in this gorgeous, historic Rackham Auditorium. We also know this room was not designed for every type of body-mind. Additionally, what is considered professional or appropriate audience behavior often fails to consider the needs and norms of many types of body-minds. So today, we will acknowledge and normalize experiences of disability in this space. Around 12:45, we'll take a 10-minute restroom and self-care break. If you are with us here in Rackham, and at any time during the event you need to get up, move around, stim, lay down on the floor, or otherwise make yourself comfortable, please feel free to do so. Later, we will ask audience members to pose questions by forming a line behind the microphones in the 2 center aisles. If you're not able to come up to these microphones, please raise your hand or ask someone nearby to raise their hand so we can assist you. By joining us today, you are demonstrating that this conversation is important. You are recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating inclusion, and we desperately need to be talking about disability inclusion. In the University of Michigan's campus climate surveys conducted in 2016, around 1/3 of disabled staff and nearly half of disabled students reported experiencing at least one incident of discrimination at our institution in the prior year. This was higher than any other student group measured. Disabled students, staff, and faculty are less likely to report feeling valued, feeling a sense of belonging, and feeling as if they are thriving and growing at U of M. We also know that disabled students face complex barriers accessing our institution in the first place, with a known enrollment of only 6% at U of M, compared to a national average of 12%. Our panelists are here today to share their personal experiences with disability inclusion and to give us a sense of how we can apply their wisdom in the work that we do. We recognize not all disability experiences will be represented, nor is this intended to be a comprehensive course on accommodations and accessibility, but we hope this will be one of many conversations on disability inclusion for all of us here, and that we can connect you with helpful resources to continue learning after the event is over. So without further preamble, I'd like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, and I will start with you, Seif. Panelists, please tell us your name, the number that's been assigned to you for the ASL interpreters, your pronouns, visual description, your department or what you are studying, how you identify related to this topic, and something you do for fun.
Hello, everyone. My name is Seif. I am number 2, and I am 24, a cisgender male, same sex and gender male, same. And I am a law student at the law school here, and also a master's. I'm earning a master's in Middle Eastern and North African Studies. I have black, wavy / curly hair. I'm about 5'4", wearing a white shirt, hazel eyes, and I'm very excited and thankful to be on this panel today. And fun things I like to do, if I have fun time at the law school, might be walking around campus, hopefully, through the Arb. It's a beautiful place. And people take this place for granted, but the cemetery, it's a very nice place to walk through.
And how do you identify related to this topic?
So I am blind. I have retinopathy of prematurity, no light perception, which means I don't see any light or shadow. And as this is my 6th year here, I went to University of Michigan undergrad, started in 2013, and identify as disabled, or however you wish to use that language, and I'm happy to contribute my thoughts on this panel.
Thank you, Seif.
You're very welcome.
Hi, can you hear me? How about now? Really close. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so my name is Kayla Williams. I use she, her, hers. I am 5'1", black woman with black hair, just a little bit past my shoulders. I'm wearing black slacks, white t-shirt with a black blazer. I graduated from here, Michigan in May. I studied through the School of Information program, undergrad, and I am currently working in Indianapolis. And what I like to do for fun is a lot of different things. So a few things is spending time with my family and friends, watching Netflix, love movies, can't go wrong with that. Also, I identify as a deaf person. I do wear a cochlear implant. Thank you.
Good, I guess, afternoon. My name is Dr. Shanna Kattari. I use she and her pronouns. I am a queer, cisgender, white, black and red, curly-haired, tattooed, sassy, fat femme who makes very exciting facial expressions. I am an assistant professor in the School of Social Work and also in the Department of Women's Studies by courtesy, and core faculty at the Center for Sexuality and Health Disparities, and director of the Sexuality, Relationships, and Gender Research Collective, and do work around queer and trans issues, sexuality, and disability. As far as something I do for fun, I enjoy gardening. I'm fairly new to Michigan. This is my 3rd summer, so learning the Michigan gardening process. And I'm a cat lady. And I identify as chronically ill and in chronic pain, as well as a disabled woman. I have fibromyalgia, chronic migraines, celiac disease, and arthritis.
And you're ASL number 4?
Oh, sorry, ASL number 4. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Fermi Okunlami. I'm number 5. I go by Dr. O. I am someone that likes to consider himself still a young man. I am a black man with short, curly black hair. I wear glasses and wooden bow ties. I have a white collared shirt on with a blue blazer and a Michigan DEI Alley pin, and I use a wheelchair. I am an assistant professor in the departments of family medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation. I'm the director for medical student programs in the Office for Health Equity and Inclusion at Michigan Medicine. I'm the director of adaptive sports, and I'm the spokesperson for Guardian Life Insurance Company of America for our Disability is Not Inability campaign. I identify as a disabled individual because of my spinal cord injury that I experienced on July 4th of 2013 as a 3rd-year resident at Yale Department of Orthopedic Surgery. For fun, I like playing with my 8-year-old son, and I enjoy all sports and trying to expand adaptive sports offerings all across the country.
Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth McLain. I am a white cis woman in my 30s. I use she, her pronouns. I have long blonde hair, glasses, blue eyes, very pale skin, so I apologize if I'm blinding anybody. Right now I'm wearing an orange blouse that has white flowers on it and a navy blue jacket, blazer. I am number 6, I should remember to say, for those of you looking at the ASL interpreter and everyone else. I also have a polka dot cane. I'm super proud of my polka dot cane, so it may come up a lot. I am autistic, and I have chronic health disabilities, which sometimes present as mobility disabilities too, so I use a cane most of the time, sometimes crutches. What else should I say, Ashley? I always forget
Did
this.
you talk about something you do for fun?
Yeah. So Ashley and I got into adaptive gaming thanks to a program through here, so
Yeah,
we like to play Mario together. I run around and usually like run off of things, and Ashley controls like jumping and throwing the hat on this game and all that fun stuff. I also talk about Star Wars too much, and my cat.
Not too much.
Hello everyone, I am Solomon Furious Worlds. I am a law student here at the University of Michigan. At the law school, oh I should do some of those other descriptive things. I'm a cis man. I'm hetero-ish sexual. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 6'2" with the afro. I have an afro. I hardly ever don't wear a headband, and today it's a navy headband to go with my blue shirt, button-up shirt. These glasses are like Malcolm X glasses, and that was intentional. Got to keep it going. I have ADHD. I have a physical disability that really dictates how much I can use my arms, really down from the forearm, or from the elbow. That came from saxophone playing. I play saxophone, not too much anymore. For fun, I write poetry and watch a lot of anime. So that's what I do.
Okay.
Ashley, I just realized I didn't say my department. Like,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
please go ahead.
Sorry, School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I'm here to represent, I promise. I'm a PhD student, a candidate in musicology, and I'm taking a job as an instructor of music history at Virginia Tech in the fall.
Also, real quick, I'm sorry, this is Solomon again. I'm number 7 for the ASL interpreters.
Did we forget anything else? How are we doing, team? Intros are hard. I think
I'm wearing a geometric blue dress. I'm not naked.
Although, knowing her, I wouldn't be surprised if she were.
We got to know each other real well over dinner last night, so you can tell we like to tease one another. Okay, so moving right along. Our first question is about disability language. And this is Ashley W. number 1 speaking, by the way. So there's lots of confusion out there about person first language versus identity first language, or person with a disability versus disabled person. Some people wonder if the word disability itself is inherently offensive. So how do you refer to yourself, and how do you want others to refer to you? And we'll just go right down the line here, starting with you, Seif.
Hello again. I am Seif Saqallah, number 2. And I guess for me, it varies. So if I am introducing myself, I say, I am a blind student. So if you parse that sentence, I, myself comes first, and then blind is my disability, and student is what I am here for. So for me, because I'm talking about myself, this disability comes first, and then the other part of the sentence. But both the disability is surrounded by myself, I and student. When I talk about others, though, I think I like to use person first language, student with a disability. But honestly, it depends, and so I ask the person, if I am able, what their preference is. And sometimes I disagree with the word disability, but I think it depends on how people interpret that word. If its connotation or denotation is bad, sometimes it depends on the person. Otherwise, honestly, it's one of the words that we unfortunately have to use, if at all, because it's commonly known and understood. But my best approach is to ask. My best approach for myself is to be direct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Kayla, number 3. Forgot to mention that in the intros. I prefer to say, well, it depends on the situation. So sometimes I might say I am deaf, but then if I'm being more considerate of my other identities, if I'm using my other identities, sometimes I might say I'm a deaf black woman, or I might say I am a black woman who is deaf, depending on the situation that I'm referring to. So it really depends for me, but in terms of using disability, I might use that if I were to, as like an umbrella term to categorize, like for example, I might say all of us have different types of disabilities, because it's hard to say this person has this and that, just to make it shorter. But I do not prefer it in general, but I use that term in terms of maybe when I apply for jobs, I have to use the term disability, or it just really depends on the situation, but it's not a term I prefer. I'd rather use the word deaf or deafness.
This is Shanna, Kattari, number 4. When I am speaking about this population of us, I interchange disabled people and people with disabilities, as I know people have different preferences. Journal editors really hate that, but I think it's really important to hold space for both. As an individual, I identify as disabled and chronically ill using identity first language for 2 reasons. The first is that it is our society that disables us, right? If I simply was chronically ill or had mobility issues and we lived in a world where everything was ramped and I could have flexible work hours to deal with my chronic fatigue and I didn't have to go out in 98-degree weather to get from my car to a building easily, I wouldn't need accommodations and I wouldn't need to consider myself disabled. It's the way that our society operates, and the same for other types of impairments and medical conditions. The second is that if you noticed when I introduced myself, I had a long string of words in front of who I am, right? I'm queer, I'm fat, I'm white, I'm many things cisgender, and we are okay putting that in front of the person. So what is so wrong and problematic with the idea of disability that we need to put the person, and I'm putting that in quotations first, just like being fat or being queer are wonderful and fine things that just describe who I am, so does my disabled identity. And so I very strongly identify as a disabled woman, not a woman with a disability.
I am Dr. O, number 5, and have the unfortunate task of following Dr. Kattari. I agree with virtually everything she said, and so I won't repeat it, but I'll say for me, based on how she says that our society is what then creates this disability, I had this conversation with a friend of mine when he was planning his wedding, and he wanted to know, he said, how do I refer to you? And I said, Fermi, because that's my name. And based on what she said before her sentence and the string of things we are, I know that Solomon wants to get to this, but I like to talk about intersectionality a lot, because I am not one thing, And so why it is that we feel as though we have to categorize or describe people by one particular thing, and specifically with disability, I think that we judge or we characterize someone based on what they cannot do instead of letting them demonstrate what they can. And so for disability, for me, I mean, I'll be very sort of arrogant in how I say, in one day, I probably do more than many people do in a week. And so why it is that I'm considered disabled is something that I don't like. Now, after coming and learning some of this community, I realize that there are a lot of people that are empowered by that word, and therefore, to go to what Seif said, I ask individuals how they like to be referred. Because personally, I don't see myself as disabled in any way. I just may not have the same function as other people do, but none of us have the same level of function. Therefore, I ask other people, and I realize that I come from sort of the medical model world, where disability is seen as something that needs to be remedied in some way, and I've also learned in this community that that is something that can be very damaging to individuals.
Hi, this is Elizabeth, number 6. I had a very interesting experience with this. My disabilities used to be invisible. That means you couldn't look at me and tell that I was autistic. You couldn't look at me and tell that I had chronic health issues. But as those chronic health issues got exacerbated and I needed to start using a cane pretty much all the time, all of a sudden I couldn't hide it anymore. And this is when I had to come to terms with what that word meant for me. And as a result, I became very radical and one of those people that Fermi is referring to who is very proud to call themselves disabled. So one thing to know is that a lot of times this person-first language, like person with a disability, is because sometimes people only see our wheelchairs, or they only see how we're different. So a lot of times that language is to emphasize that we see you as a person. Since that development, now some of us feel like we should be proud of our disabilities, that it's a strong part of our identity and a community that we really love. For me, the best thing that ever happened for my mental health was being able to show up at work, and I think this happened just in November, and say, I'm autistic, I'm disabled, and to find my people. I've only known Ashley for a few months, and it's like hard to imagine not having that friend. And a number of people up here I feel the exact same way about. So I do refer to myself as autistic, and part of that is because I didn't get a vaccine and develop autism. I was born with it. It's genetic, and it changes the entire way my brain works. So for me, it's impossible to separate my identity from my autism because it's a very pervasive thing. On the other hand, I have a more complicated relationship with my chronic health disabilities. There are some days I can get around without the cane. There are some days where I wish the chronic pain would just go away, but I've gradually learned to actually love and accept that part of myself too, because it has changed how I view the world. And in my mind, it's given me special knowledge about how to live life and how beautiful interdependence is and how damaging independence is, and certain things I never knew before. This is where Kayla wishes she was sitting next to me so she could elbow me and tell me to move on, but thanks.
This is Solomon, number 7. I have thought about this a lot lately, and so before doing work in disability rights, and actually really before being disabled, I did a lot of work in Black spaces and in LGBTQ spaces, K-12 spaces, and so there, folks introduce themselves as a queer person, as a Black person, and I am very much a Black person, and so for me, it is that description first. And when I realized, or I guess when my disabilities developed, little column A, little column B, I began to think, am I going to do, how is this going to work? But luckily for me, no one calls themselves an ADHD person. Like, that just feels odd in language, and so I typically call myself someone with ADHD if I'm speaking specifically about my disabilities. I oftentimes refer to myself as dyslexic, and my family members who are that way, who have dyslexia, similarly do so. So yeah, I think there is power in claiming your disability and claiming that identity, and I do that often, especially when I'm in singular spaces. When I'm in a disabled space, I call myself disabled. But when I'm in mixed company, I tend to call myself a person with disabilities. It's almost like demanding that white people around me call me African American, even though I'm very comfortable being called Black. It's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take this one. Respect. So.
Thank you so much. And so that's a really nice segue into our third question. how does your disability identity intersect with other identities you hold? And again, we'll go right down the line, starting with you, Seif.
Where to start? I am Seif, number 2. So I believe, might be wrong, but I have a lot of different identities. I am blind. I am Middle Eastern. I am a male. I'm a college kid who attends parties. I don't know if that's an identity. But I'm also Muslim. I'm also a law student. And all of those intersect. Now, blindness might be the identity that is available and seen by the public. I have a white guiding cane. Sometimes I run into things, sometimes I don't. People are very nice when you ask them for assistance too. Segue, or thought. But, so it depends on the situation that I find myself in. I don't let my disability dictate my identity, much like I don't let other aspects of my identity dictate who I am or how each intersects with the other. I am who I am. As Dr. O said, Fermi, I am Seif. And my name in Arabic means sword, a different part of my identity. So it could mean safe in Arabic, with sword, or it could mean a safe object in English. And even that name itself has different identities. Depends on the situation, depends on the disability, and it depends on the person. But sometimes the best way to talk about a person is with the name if they prefer so.
Okay, I'm Kayla, number 3. And I often view social identities more so for me as something you could see visually, because that's what people look at right away. So for me, people are going to say I'm black right away. They're going to say I'm a woman right away. But I have an invisible disability. So sometimes, just because of my race alone, I do face discrimination or prejudice or whatever that may be. So I will be treated differently right off the bat in most cases. And then it's different being a black woman as well. So there are cases where I don't want to reveal that I'm deaf because I'm already being judged in the space that I am. So very rarely you will hear me mention it in a professional setting or in an academic setting. So it's very rare for me to mention it unless I really know you or if I need to mention it because of the accommodations I may need. But I've learned to navigate in this world without having to reveal it to others because it's invisible. So for me, I would say that's how it intersects. So people judge me, maybe I think I'm dumb, not gonna expect something, or maybe they're expecting an unprofessional behavior just because of my skin, the color of my skin, or they may expect a lot of different things. I'm sure a lot of us know that it's associated with black women in general. I think it's a long list, we don't need to get into it. So I will say for me, it's different having an invisible disability versus if I had a more visible disability, then I think it'll be a different situation. So for me, I can hide it if necessary. Sometimes I can't, but it just depends on the situation.
This is Shanna, number 4. So I think as a foil or a piggyback to that, as a white cisgender person who's a faculty member, I hold a lot of privilege, and so I try to be very out all the time about my disability, even when I don't need to be, because I think it normalizes things in a way, and it helps people think. Maybe they don't want to be helped that way, but it gently encourages people to think about everything from events to how our faculty meetings are set up to how people want to stop me as a colleague and stand in the hallway and I have to go get a chair to sit down in it. I will also say that my intersections around being Jewish, fat, and queer come in a lot with disability, especially around events. One thing with the mast cell issues I have is I am very heat sensitive. And so I think about how Pride is in the summer, and all Pride events, whether they're school-related or community-related, are often outdoors, they're in heat. I have a scooter, I can do the mobility thing, but if I want to go to Pride, I have to bring ice packs and water bottles, which, for example, Detroit Pride won't let you bring in. And if I have to think about if there's shade or what time of day. So to be an out queer person in those spaces, I have to decide, is it worth the toll it takes on my body to do that? Similarly, there was a queer Jewish Pride event a couple weeks ago, and I had several friends who were willing to be accomplices reach out and ask about food issues, because I have celiac disease, and no one ever got back to them. And so all of my friends went to this great queer Pride Shabbat thing, and I didn't get to go because I didn't know if it would be safe for me to eat. And spending a lot of money to go to an event where I couldn't eat didn't seem like a lot of fun. And so I think the other biggest thing is, as a fat person, and I say this because Michigan is actually the only state in the country that prohibits size discrimination. I don't know if you know that. So good job, Michigan. And also, hi, University of Michigan, we have a lot of ways to go. But as a fat person who's also disabled, I experience, both from medical folks, but also from social folks, the assumption that my disabilities are correlated with my size, which they're not, right? We can talk about how certain things impact and exacerbate and correlation, but correlation is not causation, right? That's like statistics 101. And so really seeing how I interact with people, and they see that I'm fat, and then they see that I'm disabled, and there's that like automatic, subconscious, reptilian brain connection, right? And so I really want us to think about, when we see a disabled person, what are the things we think? Do we think somebody over here said something about, you know, seeing them as helpless or less than, or that's why we want to put the person first? Do we see it as, oh, this is something that happened to you, and if you weren't fat, or if you didn't do this one thing? So really thinking just for a moment, when you see or experience disabled people in the wild, what are the thoughts that come into your brain? And it's not bad to have those thoughts, that's how you've been taught, but what is it that can help you kind of deconstruct and pull apart those pieces?
This is Dr. O, number 5. And I'll be honest in saying that the way that my disability now intersects is, I always thought that I was someone that was open and understood people and things. And so a couple other identities I have. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Nigeria. I was an all-American athlete that almost went to the Olympics. I then went into orthopedic surgery as residency after medical school. All of these identities that are very proud, and that your physical abilities and your physical feats are then something that you use to judge yourself, and that other people use to judge you as well. As an orthopedic surgery resident, I took care of people with spinal cord injuries, and so I thought I understood a bit more as well about disability, since I thought I was a practitioner that cared for these individuals as well. And disability is the one thing that is ubiquitous. So disability does not discriminate based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, LGBTQ status, any different demographic group. And I've been someone that had found myself in many marginalized and underrepresented groups my entire life, and I thought I knew what it was like to be underrepresented and marginalized as a black immigrant Nigerian physician in a mostly white institution all of my life, going from Deerfield Academy, a prep school in Massachusetts for high school, to Stanford University, to Michigan, to Yale, to Notre Dame. I thought I understood what it was like to be marginalized, but until my disability, until my spinal cord injury, I did not fully acknowledge and appreciate what life really was like for people that were different. And so it's the one thing that has connected me, I feel. It's the one thing that has allowed me to truly acknowledge the experiences that other people have in a way that I did not, even though I thought I did not fully acknowledge before. And even though I said that I don't like to consider myself disabled, because as I said, I feel as though I accomplish a lot in a given day, it has allowed me to realize that there are people that may, in their best of intentions, want to understand certain things, but until you experience it yourself, or until someone gives you an experience that you had not seen before, there are people that have the best of intentions that just miss the mark, and they just don't know. And I'm the first person to say I am one of those people, because I didn't understand, and I'm still learning, even as of last night, from every single person on this panel. I'm learning a lot about disability in a way that even as a person with a disability, I still don't know. So one of the phrases that I use is that when you've met one person with a disability, you've met one person with a disability. It doesn't mean you can then apply what that person has shown you or taught you or what you've seen to every single person with a disability, even if you want to be specific and say, I am a man with a C6 incomplete spinal cord injury. You cannot see another C6 incomplete spinal cord injury and judge them based on what I do, because if you went to dinner with us last night, I walk with crutches, so I can walk sometimes, but I still use a catheter for my urinary voiding, right? And so you don't know what that person's level of function is, and so it's really important to make sure that you treat each person as an individual.
How on earth do I follow that? This is Elizabeth, number 6 again. Just to pick up on kind of what Fermi's talking about here, even once you become disabled, it's the constant learning adventure, and you have to learn how to be disabled, and you have to relearn it every day, how to actually function. And that's why it's kind of early for me to point to this, but one of the handouts has some very explicit ways that you can be a good ally to the disabled people in your life. And here at the University of Michigan, we desperately need a disability cultural center so that we can get together and talk and share these ideas, learn from each other. So I want to point that out early on and often. The other thing you might not know is that we all have different levels of privilege and support. I am a white woman, and that gives me a lot of privilege in disabled spaces. If you come from a better socioeconomic background, if you are white and you don't have to fight some of those hurdles just to get accepted, it's kind of no wonder that white people can inadvertently dominate disability spaces, which is why disability justice is so important, why it's so important to prioritize people from other demographics. So I just want to acknowledge that I have a lot of privilege, so sometimes if you meet another autistic person, you think they're like me, well, I may have more supports, I may have more money, more just family support, something that's helping me perform differently. On the other hand, gender has been an important intersection for me. Autistic people, we almost always think of men. Usually we think of middle-class white men, actually. So autism, it wasn't caught for a very long time for me because I'm female and because I was socialized female and I was taught how to camouflage, and there was a lot of pressure put on me to be able to pretend to have social skills or things like that. So it took a lot longer to get a diagnosis in my case, and I don't think that we adequately support autistic women. And it's also important in the autistic community to recognize that we're far more likely to identify as genderqueer or non-binary or something other than, male or female or man or woman. So I have a lot of privilege not falling into that category, but I want to name that so that when you meet autistic people, you're very supportive of that potential identity category too. Also, as someone who has an autoimmune disease and a genetic condition that disproportionately affect women, these conditions often take a decade or more to diagnose, and there's a lot of research that suggests that it takes an additional 10 years or more if you are female, because there are a lot of biases against women when they enter, especially 20-something. I don't know how many people tried to tell me I was just depressed. I woke up one day from a nap and was unable to walk. I couldn't walk. I finally get an appointment to see a back pain spine specialist. He doesn't even order tests. He didn't order any imaging. He said, well, just come back in 3 months, we'll see if it goes away. So 3 months later, I come back with a cane and with coping mechanisms I'd built up from support of other practitioners, but it's getting worse. It's not really getting better. And he, again, no imaging, no believing me, and told me to get a book on Amazon called Unlearn Your Pain, and just assumed it was all psychosomatic.
We also got suggested that book.
Yeah, so maybe it's a great book, but at least believe us first. So all of this to say that if I didn't have the financial resources, if I wasn't a grad student who has a pretty decent healthcare plan compared to most grad students, I couldn't have afforded to take all that time. So I want to acknowledge that part of my identity. But I also want to say that we need to do a little bit better when it comes to believing women in healthcare and disabled women in general.
Absolutely.
Solomon, number 7, you hit so many important things. Okay, also some of the things I was going to hit. I agree with all of what my panelists have said, and frankly, I'm a little upset that I'm number 7 because it means they take almost all the things. But anyways, I think, so I referenced earlier, I've been black my whole life. I've been disabled for 5-ish years. And so I don't know how, quote unquote, to be disabled in a lot of ways. The need for a cultural center, yes, that is exactly it. I can think of various examples, good and bad, of black people, black men specifically, in media, in my life, but not very many examples of folks with disabilities, and especially with my specific ones, trying to do the things that I'm trying to do. And so those are things that I think about quite often. With ADHD and dyslexia, it's no mystery, this is no surprise, there's lots of science that backs this up, but black kids are oftentimes thought to have behavioral issues when their issues, quote unquote, are really some sort of learning disability. And that was definitely the case for me growing up. Thank the Lord that I found saxophone, because music notes aren't letters, and they don't really change that much on the staff, and that was very fantastic, and it gave me a way really not have to figure this out until I started reading for law school and getting massive headaches and trying to figure out why the letters kept jumping around and dancing. So that is definitely something. I think a lot about, and actually when we were asked what's something we do for fun, I don't really have a ton of time for fun. Law school is hyper competitive. And so because it takes the average 1L, and this is just, I guess, anecdotal knowledge from my 1L class, it takes the average 1L about 30 minutes to read 10 pages in a case book. It's very dense, the words are old, and there's a lot of ETH at the end of them. Like, what does that mean? Why are we learning about this? It took me about an hour at first to read 10 pages. And it took rereading and reading it again and then taking notes and then having to stop because my arm hurts. And so between that and then also I'm a low SES status, and so I have a job as well, 1.2 jobs, and so having to work. And then by the time we get to the fun time, it's like, okay, do I sleep or do I have fun? And I gotta sleep because I have work the next day and I also have class. And so that's also a part of, it's so intersecting, and they all connect and they all interact with each other, sometimes hurtfully and sometimes helpfully. So that's definitely a part of it. I think something else that was talked about while we were up here and thinking about intersectionality is thinking about how queer identities oftentimes intersect, and thinking about the privileges and what the privileges of privileges that come with it and privileges that are stripped from you because of that, and it's extremely frustrating. And I feel like I'm just going to start repeating the things that other KO panelists are saying because they hit everything, and I'm upset because literally I wrote it down and you were just knocking it down. So let's go to the next question.
I was cheating off of you, actually.
What?
I was cheating off of him, I'll admit it. No, I'm just kidding. Ashley, can I give some statistics really quickly to back up what you were
Yes, and
saying?
then we need to take a break soon, but yes.
Oh, okay,
yes, go
sorry.
for it.
So as we're kind of going into the next part, this is Elizabeth, number 6. According to some recent studies as summarized in Jay Dolmage's Academic Ableism, 2/3 of disabled students don't complete their degree within 6 years. When they do graduate, it takes on average 25% longer, and they likely have up to 60% more student debt. Once you get to the faculty level, it's only about 3.6% of people that will identify as having a disability publicly.
Absolutely, thank you for those numbers. So it's 12:45-ish, so we're gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll start promptly in 10 minutes for the sake of time, and when we come back, we'll start at the other end of the table in Saul's honor. Okay. So see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. How are our panelists doing? Aren't they doing a great job? Let's give them a little love. Although some of them aren't back yet. Tisk, tisk. It's a good thing I love playing Mario with you so much, Elizabeth. Okay. We are waiting on Kayla. Ashley is going to go find Kayla.
I think Kayla's moving
Okay.
on.
Let's get started. Oh, there she is. So our next question is about situations in the classroom. Right, so what are some common situations you encounter in the classroom, at events, during meetings, or in the workplace that make that setting inaccessible to you, and what can be done to ensure you are included? And as promised, Saul, we're starting with you. You're up.
He grins largely. Okay. So, the last question, or rather the last answer I gave, spoke a lot about how reading outside of class is challenging and having to do it multiple times, etc. But also within class, oftentimes we're asked to read passages or to state specifically where in a case a specific thing that we're talking about is. That is difficult, especially the longer and older the words get. Oftentimes so there was an example where we had to do an oral argument. Every year, every 1L has to do one oral argument. And during that process, I switched the numbers of the statute. And in doing so, lost points. And You know, it's something that I'll face in the real world, so like good learning opportunity, but also a challenge and very frustrating. Separately, when I'm working, I do a lot of organizing in the school and outside of the school. It's hard, I don't know how anyone could be in law school and not organize. Law school is so frustrating sometimes. You gotta organize to stay sane. Anyways, when I'm speaking with other affinity groups, of which I'm a part of Outlaws, the LGBT crew group, I'm part of BALSA, which is the black group, I still have to convince them that within my role leading one of the leaders of the disability rights organization, that we need to be at the table. It is so frustrating to not be included at the table with people who I work very closely with, who I am friends with, and who are part of the movement, but are still exclusionary. That is, to me, probably been the largest challenge that I've faced within my work, because you want them to know, you expect them to know as well, and then they don't. Thankfully, they're always ready to learn, and so once they've learned, they know for next time, but it's still frustrating, you know?
So this is Elizabeth, number 6. One thing I've encountered as I've been teaching is that a lot of times the sort of the seating, or like in here the audience section, might be accessible, but the stage isn't, because I guess no one imagines that we need to be on stage. So that's something to think about, making sure that there's even just a place for me to sit down. It's very awkward. Job interviews, for example, how much of a deal do I make of needing a stool, or is that going to make too many waves for them to seriously consider me as a candidate? As an autistic person, sensory issues are a very big deal for me, and that can come with certain types of lighting, like especially fluorescent lighting, which is also tough if you have epilepsy, migraines, but also basically for me, everything seems too bright, too loud, that sort of thing. So kind of having alternatives, being able to like have part of the classroom darker, or just being in tune with if your students or the people in your event are having trouble. Giving them the chance to tell you what their needs are and believe them without asking them to give you private, confidential medical reasons why they need it is a big deal. Another thing I struggle with are leading questions. Sometimes people want you to kind of like finish the thought, or the professor wants you to say a certain thing. My brain may not go there, and this is my autistic superpower. I mean, one of my gifts as a researcher is that my brain goes places that a neurotypical or non-autistic or different brain may not go. So those leading questions become very exclusionary. It produces a lot of anxiety from me, and I've had to interrupt oral exams sometimes and just explain that that's not a good way to get the information. I'm not just gonna guess what's on your mind. Which leads to one other thing, which is just make things explicit. Don't expect me to fill in the blank. If you're upset with me, tell me you're upset with me so we can work it out. If I did something good, tell me I did something good. Don't expect me to know something that's not explicitly written out, which I think is honestly something we should be doing anyway.
Dr. O, number 5. So as Elizabeth said, oftentimes we're not expected to be in certain positions, and so in my role as a physician, we often talk about disability, and as providers, we're taking care of all of these patients with disabilities, but seldom are we expected to be the provider with a disability as well. So in many spaces in healthcare, the places where the physicians may be, or the medical providers, aren't accessible. And so one way that actually here at University of Michigan we're trying to aim to change that is, I didn't mention this in my introduction as well, but we've recently formed something called M-Disability, which is our new initiative trying to, using clinical work, education, community engagement, and research, make healthcare more accessible for both patients and providers with disabilities. And so just talking about how there's often not enough space in the exam room for me and my patient in a wheelchair, to talk about how even patients coming with disabilities to the clinical encounter may not be able to get weighed because we don't always have scales that use wheelchairs, having spaces that people don't have to be able to find ways to open the doors to get in and out of the clinic if they're in a wheelchair, or if they're pushing their mother or father or partner or someone who's in a wheelchair. So it's very ironic to see that healthcare spaces aren't always accessible and acknowledging people with disabilities. And in my role as a physician, we see that especially. And so that's one of the things that here at Michigan in the Department of Family Medicine, with collaboration of other people, we're trying to rectify.
This is Shanna, Kattari, number 4. I want to echo what Elizabeth said about lighting, and also scents trigger migraines for me, and scents can be issues for other people. And so I think about, like, my office has lower lighting, and I keep it that way for students. But for me, it's not even just the lighting setup, but I was in a faculty meeting once where a light was flickering, and nobody understood why I had to leave the meeting. And I went to facilities, and they're like, we'll fix it after the meeting. And I'm like, it's a 4-hour meeting. I can't sit through this happening the whole time. And so again, I think some of it is just being responsive. When someone says, hey, this isn't working for my body or my mind, being like, okay, instead of we'll deal with it later, or I don't understand, my body is handling it fine, or yeah, of course that's annoying, but suck it up, buttercup. I have 6 very quick things. One is food. As somebody with celiac disease who's also been a vegetarian, I've been a vegetarian for 27 years. I've had a celiac diagnosis for 3.5. I can't choose between them. And when the option response is vegetarian or gluten-free, and you can only select one, I just know I can't eat at your event. And similarly, if you get gluten-free food but don't label it, I often have to spend a lot of the event asking what's in things, and then people don't know because the event planner wasn't there or they didn't ask. Or there's like cheese, but it's in a bread bowl. And I'm like, I don't mind eating cheese and veggie. I eat those at events all the time, but if it's touching bread, I can't, right? So just thinking about that. Seating. If you're going to have people standing in long lines, I also can't do high chairs, high tops, which is like the super trendy thing. And so if you're booking events at restaurants, especially off campus, trendy restaurants are like all high tops now. Not great for me, not great for wheelchair users, not great for folks who have service animals, right? There's a lot of reasons having mixed seating or lower tops. And if people are going to be standing, giving them a heads up or providing a seating option as well. Let me know what parking is. Right? Like if it's, especially if it's an event off campus, do I have to pay for parking? Where's the nearest accessible parking? Just put it in the event invite, because otherwise you're going to get like 30 emails from me, and I'm like, can I have a map? And then all this, it's a thing. Again, if it's outdoors, or if we're walking, like it's a walking tour, do I need my scooter? Is it going to be hot? Is there going to be shade? Things I need to know about for that. And then this is something that, one of the reasons academia is both perfect for me and also challenging is I cannot do early mornings. I cannot, and people with chronic fatigue and many other people with chronic illness cannot do early mornings. And when I say cannot, like, oh no, I just need coffee to make my brain work, I mean, I physically cannot get out of bed. It takes me 2 hours in the morning to get out of bed. And so I set my schedule to be 10 a.m. or later, and I will stay till 6 or till 8 or to whatever's needed. And there's that like perfect spot in the middle of the day where, you know, people who have children don't have to pick them up yet, and people who are not night people, right, that like 10 to 3 range, have your meetings in that range if you can, because I cannot be at a meeting and say anything of any intelligence at 8 in the morning. And so when you have your breakfast meeting, and I can't eat because you brought bagels, I can't park because it's like at Zingerman's Deli and is super trendy or whatever, I can't sit comfortably and I have to stand, just thinking about all of those things.
Okay, I'm going to try to be brief. I know we're running a long time. So for me, as a deaf person with a cochlear implant, sometimes people have, and because I can speak clearly without a deaf accent, which is a common term, a lot of people pre-assume that I can hear 100%. That is not true. So without the cochlear implant, I am deaf. So therefore, with the cochlear implant, I can only hear very limited things. I do not hear all of the words, maybe 80% of the times. So in those cases, I am a lip reader. So a lot of times when people are talking, they're covering their mouths a lot or eating and trying to talk at the same time. That's what makes things really difficult. Also, closed captioning is a big deal for me. I need closed captioning for videos, movies, anything. There are times when I literally go to the movie theaters. They do not offer those sources. It do not work, or sometimes they don't do a good job of advertising that those resources are optional. Sometimes people don't know that those are things you can actually use in public. I'm trying to think really briefly. Also, I have a Roger pen, which is like a microphone that connects to my cochlear implant, so I can hear them as if they're standing next to me. So there are cases where people refuse to use them. I've had weird situations where people are freaking out and thinking it's something else, like a safe tool, when it's just a microphone for me. I'm not spying. I'm not doing any of those paranoid things that people assume. And I use note takers. Basically, it means a person comes to your class, take your notes for you. I've had experiences where people do not show up to class, or they take really crappy notes, or they come late, so they have no respect. So in general, if you are doing anything related to disability work, do be considerate of that. And also, I would say if you're talking to someone and if they choose to share they have a disability, I would say ask them how can you be helpful, opposed to pre-assuming that you know about their disability, which is not true. I have people yelling at me. I don't need you to yell at me. It makes me feel like you're belittling me. That's the best way to put it. So don't pre-assume things. So always ask questions if they are comfortable with it. So the best way to say, if you don't mind, may I ask about X and Y and Z? That's the best way to do it. If they say no, thank you, or no, do not be offended. It is their personal choice if they choose to share or not. So I just want to say that. That's the biggest thing. Hopefully that summarized it really quick.
Hello, I'm Seif, number 2. Much of what I wanted to say was already said, which is good. This world is a beautiful world, but for me, it's a sighted world. And I thank God that I'm in it. But a lot of things are sighted, like in class, when the professor writes something on the board or uses a PowerPoint, I ask the professor to spell the thing or say what they wrote. Often when I raise my hand in class, this can be amusing, I get yes, silence. I don't know if the professor's calling on me, and then the professor says the name. And sometimes it can take a while, it can take some training, but sometimes I have those issues too. I am disabled, I am blind, but sometimes I forget about other disabilities too. And I had a blind friend in high school, and whenever I would hear her voice, I would wave, and then say her name. So my point for mentioning this is acknowledge your shortcomings, and then learn from them. That is the best way to learn. And if you are able, yes, if you're able, if you can, advocate for yourself, because honestly, no one will, unless if you do it. If they see you're advocating for yourself, and if you see that you're up and you can do it, it's a much easier process. There are resources, there are support groups, but initially it starts with you.
Thank you.
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah.
Just want to add this really quick, sorry. If someone say, would you please do this for me? Please do not question why they have to do that. Maybe they don't want to share it. So please just be friendly and just do it. I would just say that's just based on my personal experience. And just please be friendly about it, and please do not be awkward about it. If you see someone has a disability or share it, just treat them like another human being, honestly. So I think that's very important, because people get to this thing of, oh, wow, ooh, this is awkward. Don't, just be yourself. I think that's what most of us want, is just to be treated like another person. So I say that's very important. It's okay to be shocked or surprised in the moment, because maybe that's not when you expect it. But if you are a person like me who shows their facial expressions very well, just say, oops, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that, I just had no idea, just so that person won't think you're being offensive when really you're just human, and you're gonna make faces or reactions naturally. So I would just keep those in mind.
This is Seif again. The best thing to do, honestly, in my opinion, is to ask. You don't get anywhere if you don't ask. You don't want to remain ignorant. You want to have the courage if able to ask. And if the answer is no, the answer is no. You learn, you move on.
And this is Shanna, number 4. I want to add a little caveat to that, is that many of us don't want to talk about our diagnoses or the processes, and we don't want to feel like bugs under a microscope. So I think what Kayla said about, hey, do you mind if I ask what would be best for you in your body, or what is the best way for me to go around that, is great. Being like, can you tell me your entire disability life story before I serve you lunch at this event, is maybe not ideal.
And this is Elizabeth, number 6. Sorry to keep going. Believe us, believe us, believe us. Because I don't know how this happened. I think it was 24-hour news networks. There are not a million people faking disabilities out there. And I can't tell you how many times people have confronted me as I get out of my car in a handicap-accessible space, and they're trying to tell me that I don't need that access. Sometimes when I pull the cane out, they back off, but it's probably because I look like I'm going to swing it. So please believe us. I'm just going to tell you, there are not enough benefits to pretending to have a disability to make it worth it.
Thank you, panelists. Are folks in the back able to hear us? I know that was an issue before the break. Are there any issues? If so, like wave really big. Okay, I think we're good. So going on to our next question then. How would you describe the university's messaging related to disability and event marketing and syllabi? And for this question, not every panelist opted to respond, so Shanna, I'd like to start with you. And I'm sorry, this is Ashley, number 1. I've forgotten to say that at least 10 times. But here I am. Shanna, over to you.
This is Shanna, number 4. Again, I'm fairly new here. I just finished my second year, and I will give a shout out to the School of Social Work. Every single event that we've had has a section that says, like, as you RSVP for the event, what accommodations might you need, and just has a blank box, which has been lovely, and I thought that that was how the entire university worked. Apparently, I found out last night it is not. And so it's sometimes really just that simple. But what I will say as far as marketing is there's often not the information I need and that I know other people need. So for example, I don't use ASL or CART or need that, but I will often email events when I'm going and ask them what the process is, because there's no information about how someone would request an interpreter or CART if they needed it. There's often no information on parking. There's often no information about if seating is available, if food will be served, all of those things. And so I think that this is something that, again, it's helpful for everyone. If you have kids and are going to an event in the evening, it's helpful to know if there's going to be food there. It's helpful to know if there's going to be seating. And so when we talk about universal design, it's this idea that if we just start from a place where we try to make everything as inclusive in the beginning, it takes effort off of people in having to kind of retcon or backtrack and add things at the end. And so if you put all of that information on your event marketing to begin with, you'll get less emails, and you'll already know what parking looks like. You'll already know that those people can email ASL for ASL interpreters, and you don't have to go back and find that information later. And so really moving towards that. I also did want to share a kind of yay and oops that UM made, is that last year they did a photo shoot specifically of people with disabilities for their HR website, because they wanted to show that there are faculty and staff, all 3% of us, with disabilities that work here in helping to recruit more, which I think is wonderful, and I volunteered to do it. I did the photo shoot. The photos were amazing. I used them on my website. It's great. Yay. Then last month, all of my friends suddenly started on social media sending me a screenshot, and they're like, oh my gosh, look, it's you. I'm on the website now. It's wonderful. They cropped my cane out, right? Not on purpose. It's just, it happens to be an upper body shot of me teaching and writing social justice on the board, which is like ideally on brand. But if the whole point of the photo shoot was to show a disabled person, and I'm someone whose disability is often invisible, I intentionally brought a cane. It matched my outfit. It matched my eyeshadow. I'm holding it, but the way it was cropped for the website wasn't there. And so it's one of those things where when you're thinking about what you're doing, really think about what the message is. Back to what Elizabeth said, are you showing not only people with disabilities and disabled people, but disabled folks of color, queer disabled folks, immigrants who are disabled, all of these things, a variety of disabilities, if you're trying to market around that.
So this is Dr. O, number 5, and I will do my best not to seem as if I'm trying to bite the hand that feeds me, but at the hospital, so we're talking about marketing, something else that's very important is that you don't seem to want to leverage disability when it's convenient. So if anyone's been to the hospital, there's actually an image of a young man in a sport wheelchair in 2 different locations. One is on our elevator door, and then the other one is on a big poster that's taking you from Taubman into the main hospital. Now, this is something that I call our attention to because we are the University of Michigan that prides ourselves in our wonderful academics and our wonderful athletics. And we have an athletic department that is really proud of all the things that we do. We're trying to then create an adaptive sports program which recognizes the fact that there are individuals that continue to play sports at a high level that would make this institution very proud that are not included here right now. We do not have an adaptive sports program. We barely have accessible facilities for recreational intramural athletes to be able to go to the gym to get physical fitness and just exercise like their peers. So then when you have pictures around the institution with a young man in a Michigan shirt, as if we actually have that, that's disingenuous. And so when marketing comes in, I'm all about using individuals with disabilities to then demonstrate and to recruit and to want people to come. But if you then do not support and actually represent those individuals when they are here, then that is something that you should not do. And so that's one of the things that, as I said, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds us here, but I think that this panel is hoping to elucidate some of the things that may have been unintentional in the way that we do them. But there are times where we use things when we think that it's of benefit because it's a really pretty picture and a really sad story. But then when people dig in and ask, how are you actually fostering or supporting that at your institution? The answer is that you're not.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
This is Elizabeth, I'm number 6. Very briefly, I was in a meeting with 2 people, I'll just say person A and person B, about creating some disability training opportunities, disability as culture and that sort of thing to help with the teaching that was happening in our unit. The first one near the end of the meeting says, do we even have anything about disability on our website? And we didn't have even a link to the SSD office at this point to talk about accommodations, we had nothing. Person B goes, well, we use the website for recruiting. Do we really want disabled people on the website? That might make people not want to come here. And this is someone who knows me well, has worked with me for a very long time, and I'm sitting there with my cane talking about offering my time and money and resources for free to do training on this issue. Person A, after an uncomfortable silence, said, well, we could set up a page that shows success stories for disabled people who've been through here, which is also uncomfortable. There's something that we call inspiration porn, which is the notion that disabled people and our stories were taken and put in this context where we're just there to inspire able-bodied people. Oh, if that person can do something with no legs, I should be able to do it. And it's very uncomfortable to objectify us this way. So as we're talking about including disabled people, try to be very cognizant of whether you're treating them as an object or whether they're an equal partner and you're respecting their humanity as you do it.
Could I say something before we move on? This is Solomon, number 7, and I think what is something that I've heard from all 3 of it seems like that's part of this is an old saying that occurs often in this community is nothing about us without us. And it sounds like a lot of those issues are things where if someone had been at the table when the photo was being edited, if someone had been at the table when they decided to put that marking up, if someone had been at the table and someone was at the table and they were still doing it, so sometimes that's nothing about us without us and still being bad.
Yeah,
but
they didn't do it in part because I was at the table. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for that addition. So thinking about messaging and how we communicate inclusion at our events, let's think about the standard LSA event statement, which is going to be on the slide behind us, and I'll read in just a moment. For our panelists, to what extent do you find this statement helpful and welcoming, and what recommendations for improvement do you have? And so this event statement says, if you are a person with a disability who requires an accommodation to attend this event, please contact blank at least number of weeks or days, 2 weeks is what is recommended, in advance of this event. Please be aware that advance notice is necessary as some accommodations may require more time for the university to arrange. And note that this is the standard statement that LSA uses. Other units, I think, also use this, but other units have their own statements. So again, to what extent do you find this statement helpful and welcoming? And what recommendations for improvement do you have? We can start with you again, Shanna. Or Seif, would you like to go first? Seif.
Okay, I guess I'll go. I'm Seif, number 2. I will try to keep this brief. I like how the language begins with person with a disability. It might sound better that way, and it doesn't assume, but, and this is coming a little bit from a legal aspect, it almost reads like the first draft of a statute. It is helpful, but not quite welcoming or inviting. And so, for me, somewhat 2 weeks notice might be a little bit too much, and it also limits those accommodations to people with a disability, and then you get into questions of, does my disability count as a disability? Some people would not think so. And it's helpful, but in my opinion, it is not welcoming. It lays out steps methodically, formulaically, and there's almost an element of the humanitarian element. The reason that you want people to attend this event is to benefit and learn and to feel wanted at that event. That, for me, is not in the statement. Sometimes the shorter, the better. Sometimes the less specific, the better, because it gives more leeway. It's a good statement, but it's a first draft.
Hi, this is Kayla, number 3. Sorry for forgetting my number. I'm always thinking about what I'm going to say next. So for me, when I was studying undergrad, sometimes in between working, classes, and orgs, I do not know what my schedule is going to be like. So for me, 2 weeks in advance, I may think I can go or I can go. Maybe I won't know till that exact day that I can now go to an event. So I do think that it should be a plan in general of a overall general accommodations you should have, from food restrictions to, we're gonna have car services to ASL to wheelchair ramps, et cetera. It should be a generalized plan because there may be people who come at the last minute and need those accommodations. So it's very hard to say 2 weeks in advance. For me, that is too far in advance for my schedule as a student. And then also, I would like to say, if you do offer accommodations, make sure it is offered properly. For example, I remember going to a show, not a show, but more so of an honors award type of thing last year, and the closed captioning are all the way over there in the far corner, but no one else from, if you're sitting over here, you cannot see it. So that's an example. Or there were flowers and different types of decorations on the stage, kind of blocking the top part of the closed caption. So I think those are very important to take that into consideration. And I think, honestly, certain seating should be blocked off to accommodate people, because what if I am deaf, but I also have a visual impairment, whatever may be the proper term for that. Maybe I need to sit closer. Maybe I can't see it from the far back looking at the closed captions at the bottom. So I do think there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Even if you do offer them, just be careful of how it is being offered. Don't just think of it as, well, at least we offered it. Let's think about, we want everyone to be involved. We want everyone to enjoy this event. How can we do that?
This is Shanna, number 4. If I was to write it, I would just say, what do you need, perhaps even for if legalese, if you need it, what accommodations do you need to most fully participate in this event? And that leaves it open to people to put whatever they need there. It could be something like, I need cart, but to be able to sit in the front. What if you need cart and a wheelchair spot? All of those things. But also things like, I need to know if childcare is available. I need to know if it's appropriate to bring my spouse. I need to know if it's appropriate to do these things. And so it just gives that block of information and can open a conversation. I'm also going to use this piece to say something that, after a conversation last night, I think is important to be said. Dr. O asked me, said, what happens when during Q&A someone says, but we don't have access to these accommodations, right? Which is a great question. And I'm new here, I'm still learning things. I just learned last night that the school only covers accommodations like CART if it's a student who's registered with disability coming to the event. It doesn't cover it for disabled staff members. It doesn't cover it for disabled faculty members, disabled community members, or students who, for whatever reason, have chosen not to register with SSD. And so that is a problem. And I'm calling out everybody right now to argue for this, because if our university, leaders and best, #1 in the country in how many of our programs, cannot provide accommodations for our community of people with disabilities to fully participate in events, it should not be the responsibility of small departments to blow their entire budget to get an ASL interpreter for one event, right? So if we are the leaders and best, which I genuinely believe that we can be, the University of Michigan needs to get behind its DE&I claim and say disability is part of this, and all events should have access to all accommodations needed, and the school, the university, will cover the cost.
And Dr. O is dramatically dropping the mic on the table. Thank you for those words of wisdom. So similarly, let's think about the current SSD recommended syllabus statement. And again, to what extent do you find this statement helpful and welcoming, and what recommendations for improvement do you have? And I will read it. If you think you need an accommodation for a disability, please let us know at your earliest convenience. Some aspects of this course, the assignments, the in-class activities, and the way we teach may be modified to facilitate your participation and progress. As soon as you make me aware of your needs, we can work with the Office of Services for Students with Disabilities, SSD, to help us determine appropriate accommodations. And then it gives SSD's contact information and says, SSD typically recommends accommodations through a verified individualized services and accommodations, abbreviated VISA, form. We will treat any information that you provide in as confidential a manner as possible. So How welcoming and helpful do you find this? And recommendations for improvement. Seif, do you want to start, or should we ask Elizabeth to start? Your preference?
I don't mind starting after you if you want, Elizabeth.
Sure. This is Elizabeth, number 6. The first thing I want to say is this is not the worst statement I've seen of this kind, but I don't think we need to settle for where it's at. As someone who is registered with SSD, because I have that odd joint role as a student and as someone who's teaching too, the very last sentence gives me a lot of pause, because our information shouldn't be as confidential in a manner as possible. I mean, there is no reason as a teacher why I ever need to know the specific medical diagnoses of my students. Like, we should be able to do better on that front. It should be that once SSD recommends an accommodation, I can do that accommodation. If the student tells me it's not working for them, we can brainstorm and see if we can do even better than the minimum legal requirement. I also want to point out that there are a lot of obstacles to registering a disability here. We're not exactly sure, and there's probably multiple reasons, why only 6% of students here at U of M are registered versus that 11–12% national average. But obstacles to diagnosis are a big deal. Speaking as someone who has acquired disabilities or disabilities that worsened even while I was in school, if your doctor doesn't know what's causing it, it's very hard for them to give you the paperwork you need to register sometimes. So I understand SSD is working on this. They're working very hard to try to find the best model possible to catch those people. We need to acknowledge that students are going to fall through the cracks. They may not be able to register. Something might happen mid-semester. They may not be able to afford all of the doctor's visits and tests and everything that go into that too. And students may not be comfortable with this word disability. It took me a very long time to be comfortable with it. So as inclusive language as possible that we could get, where we can catch that things happen mid-semester. In my experience, if your syllabus and if the way you introduce yourself early in the semester live up to the way that I know all of us want to be inclusive, we want to be welcoming, we want our students to feel comfortable talking to us or our colleagues, if you model that, that's a lot more effective than just saying, if you need something, you need to go through these steps, please do it 2 weeks in advance, or I'm not liable for it, that sort of language.
Okay, so I like this language better. And piggybacking off of that, sometimes some things that are not mentioned is what happens when I will use the I and generic use. When I, as a student, do not receive an accommodation. In that instance, I think, rarely do I take no for an answer. I sometimes do by necessity. But I try and seek to inquire why and to understand the reasoning behind. Sometimes it's a systemic thing. It's not the person. My advice to myself is don't get frustrated with the person. The person is filling a job, and they're just acting as they were told. And so if I want an accommodation, I try and find the answer why. I try and seek and see if I can get other input and information without necessarily going behind the person's back. And I think that is the best approach. It is better for you to try and see why and to find other alternatives because, again, it goes back to self-advocacy. No one will do it if you do not. And there are situations where you have to take no for an answer and move on. But there are situations where you don't have to take it. And seeking the answer teaches you more about the answer and more about yourself than if you were not in that situation in the first place.
This is Dr. O. Oh, sorry. Dr. O, number 5, really quickly. Neither of these last two statements had this, but I also want to encourage you to avoid the word or the phrase special accommodations, because then that gives the impression that you're doing something special above and beyond that then is a burden to you in some way, where this is really just providing what is necessary for this individual to be able to fully participate. Because as the student is just trying to learn, get to class, do whatever they need to do to participate, and when they feel as though they are then a burden to you because you have to do something special for them, it's sometimes discourages them from reaching out and asking for those things. And so that's what I want to make sure that here, as we're talking about learners and whatever stage the learners are, is that it shouldn't seem like a burden or a hindrance to provide whatever is necessary for the individuals to be able to participate fully. And the phrase that I often have used is assume competence, because as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, too often we don't provide what's needed because we think that the person shouldn't be there or can't be there, or that because they're autistic or because they are blind or because they are deaf, that they're not going to be able to be a lawyer or a doctor or a social worker or whatever it is that they can be. And said it's our society that limits them from being able to do that, not whatever they have in themselves, that if you gave them the appropriate resources to be able to demonstrate what they can do, they would be able to do.
This is Shanna, number 4. So I will say that in addition, on my syllabi, in addition to whatever the official statement is, I put something that says, I design my classroom from a universal design for learning model and try to make it as accessible as possible from the beginning. And I say things like students should be able, you can choose where you sit in the classroom. If you need to be closer to the door or facing the door, that's up to you. If you need to move your body, I understand. You're welcome to eat in our classroom space. Anyone can use a laptop, because when you have no laptop policies, the only people who get to use laptops are the disabled folks who have accommodations, and it outs them. But I say, please use your laptop wisely. If I see you on Amazon or Facebook, we'll have to have a conversation. But I also say, and things like I put captions on every film, and I describe all images, and I try to do that from the get-go, and I tell students that. But I also say, I'm learning too, and I don't know who's going to be in this classroom with me, and I also don't know what's going to change throughout the semester. So if you have ideas for how we can make our space as learners together more accessible and affirming for everyone, I'd love to hear them, because we're all on this journey, right? And it doesn't mean I don't get the accommodations forms, and sometimes I have to get extra things scanned because I can't find a screen reader version of it, and it doesn't mean I don't have to get creative about the activities I do, because this one involves colors and someone is colorblind, and I'm trying to, it's a process. But when you, I think what Elizabeth said is when you open that space for that conversation to say none of us are experts, because even none of us up here are experts, right? We're all learning. Then it gives students, but also your coworkers, the ability to come and ask a question and say, hey, I noticed this on your syllabus. I don't even know what UDL is, right? Or how do you get captions? I've never had to do that before. Can you help me out with that? Or I'm trying to figure out this game and I don't know what to do, right? So the more that we can say we're in this together and willing to do the work together, the better changes can be made.
I'm also going to chime in here. On my syllabus, I also start from a place of UDL, and what I love about doing that, mentioning universal design, I work in a global justice living learning community, and what I love about that is this message doesn't just go out to disabled students, it goes out to all students. It sends a message about disability and about inclusion to everyone. So then I get to ask, who knows what universal design is? And then we have a conversation about how universal design is meant to be beneficial, not just for disabled students, but for multicultural students, for folks with different faith practices. And we talk about how part of universal design is building in prayer time, if that's something that you need. And so I really love that. I also read this last part. We will treat any information that you provide in as confidential a manner as possible. So there's tension here for me, because absolutely, unequivocally, students have a right to confidentiality. And also, there's something that's like stigmatizing in this, because I don't think that disability, I would love to live in a world where disability doesn't have to be something we feel needs to be kept confidential. And so I add, I hope this classroom is a place where you feel you can openly be yourself, though I will absolutely treat any information you provide me with the amount of discretion that you tell me to. So I just wanted to add that in. Unless there, yes, Seif.
Seif here. Well spoken, everyone. I just have to say that.
Hey, thanks. So at this time, we have a few minutes left for questions from you all. And I want to reiterate that If you would like to ask a question, you can form a line behind the microphones that are in the center aisles. Also, if you're not able to come up to the microphones, please raise your hand, and Ashley will enthusiastically come to you with a microphone.
I just want to say, don't be shy. This is a space where you can ask us questions, regardless if you're nervous or scared of how it may sound like. We know that that you guys are trying to get a better understanding, so it's okay to ask any type of questions. Some people may choose to jump in, or some people may not like that question, but it is space for you to feel like you can ask any questions. So please use that.
Hi, thank you so much. It was almost weird to be able to stim and write and take notes and knit and do as much as I need to be comfortable in this space. I don't so much have a question, but wanted to add another consideration to the LSA as well as the syllabi statements, which is that I have the conflicting diagnoses of ADHD and generalized anxiety disorder, which means that I both, yes, understand why the end of a line is really hard because you have all the opinions, but also, and dare to speak up, but also can be super anxious about emailing someone for accommodations. And as much as I self-advocate, telling me to contact someone, especially if it only has a phone number, is really hard. Also implies that you might only have to call. Not everyone calls, not everyone texts. So I just wanted to give that as a consideration as well, which is why I love the open boxes, just fill in the blank of what do you need. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Just real quick to address that. Thank you so much for asking that question. That was lovely. I think that at least at the law school, something that we have done, me and 3 other folks co-founded a disability rights organization. That's what it's called. And we try to be that person. I have thought about this a lot, and I know that some of us have had, on the stage even have had conversations about how to make getting accommodations more accessible. And so thank you so much, because that's very true, it's very real, and it's things that folks within my student organization have done with, and in some cases for, other students as they are doing that process for getting accommodations. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Nicole Rutherford with the Department of Political Science. So as you were talking, I realized that definitely one of the areas that we don't think about a lot are the chronic health issues as disability. And I'm thinking in particular, in my unit, I'm responsible with my team to plan graduate recruitment events, and those are usually multi-day events where we bring a number of students that we've offered admissions to campus, and there's a number of meetings, and there's always at least one day that is jam-packed from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. With just not necessarily stuff that they have to do, but if they want to experience everything that we have to offer to them, that is a really horribly rough day. And so I'm just wondering if you, those of you who can speak to it, have had to endure something like that, and any recommendations you might have for us to adjust around those kinds of needs while we're in the planning process, before we even know that a student might need that kind of accommodation, because we wouldn't know that until it's much later.
This is Shanna. As someone who was just on the job market 2 years ago, I have a lot of thoughts about this, because for those who don't know, the academic job market usually involves 2 or 3 days from about 7 a.m. till 9 at night doing meetings. And sometimes you don't even get bathroom breaks. So that's fun. Building in things, so having breaks throughout the day where you have downtime. So you might say between, if you're starting at 7, having something between 9:30 and 10 where there's just some quiet time, and you could give options, like you could put out flyers and information, or tell people there's a coffee shop if they want to, go next door and check that out. But really building in those breaks so it's normative and it's not just for those people that need it. But also putting information out up front that says, we recognize that this is a really busy day, and that not everybody can engage in every event. If you let us know in advance which ones are most important to you, or which information will be most important to you, we will try to time that in a way that works for you, right? So that people know that you're willing to be flexible, and you don't have to do that, do I disclose in advance, and then maybe they won't want me as a student because they're gonna think I'm lazy if I ask for time down, or if that I say that I can't be there at 7, or I say that at 5 p.m. is my cutoff because then I'm exhausted, right? Because everybody has different needs. So I think when you frame it up front of like, this is a smorgasbord and we want to make sure you get as much as you would like and can handle, and recognize that not everybody will be able to attend every event, I think that will go a long way in just allaying, I have anxiety too, the anxiety of, do I come out, do I ask for this, or do I just try and push myself and then take a week off to recover?
Yeah. And if I can add to that a little bit, a lot of these situations, the students, or if you're a faculty member in the job market, which is terrifying, you can't tell whether or not you're implicitly being judged, but the lived, like, day-to-day, most mundane experience of disability is just logistics, like just trying to figure out how to make stuff work. So as much information as they can have up front, the better. I'd also say from a universal design perspective, while there may be 100 opportunities you want to offer them to really be inclusive, it may be better to pare that down and say we're just going to have these very fantastic, well thought out, well planned activities. Because there's two things there. If it really has to be an all-day thing, and I know that I'm going to need to socialize all day and seem bubbly, which is probably hard to imagine, I can never fake that, but you know, if I know I have to do it and I have enough notice, I can structure the rest of my life. I can kind of save up those spoons and save up that energy to then expend then if I really have to. But when you're building these events, it's something to think about. You know, how much is in here just because it's a good idea and how much is really essential and meaningful.
And I just want to say spoon theory is something you should Google. But YouDon'tLookSick.com has a very good description, and we don't have enough time to go into it, but it's very needed.
Can we send that out afterwards in an email?
Yeah, we can. Absolutely.
So we have about 2 minutes left, so I think if we have the two of you each ask your question, and maybe we can find a way to integrate answers to both of the questions.
Perfect.
Would that be okay?
Yeah. Thank you, panelists, very much. My name is Mary, and I'd like to know how you handle requests for your medical records. Standard practice from places like the ACLU and Sugar Law and the EEOC is never release your medical records to anyone. But sometimes you're in the uncomfortable position where you're asked for those records and you won't be accommodated unless you provide them. How do you handle requests for medical records? Forgive me, I need to sit.
I think we're going to take both questions and then answer, so can we get your question too?
I want to applaud you for all your wonderful stories and remind you that you are the forefront of disability. You are going to be the example for us who are aging, and we're all aging with disability. Disability is an experience that we all will have at one point of our life. Can I still ask a question, or is this it? My key question is, what is the one thing you would like to see changed in our city to make it more accessible or inclusive for a person like you?
This is Shanna 4. I'll answer them both very quickly. If anybody asks for my medical records, I say no thank you, and I will send them a link to why that's illegal. And as far as what I would like to see, I think I said what I said about the University of Michigan, and I stand or sit behind that. But I think in general, and especially in a place that considers itself progressive like Ann Arbor, diversity and inclusion rarely includes disability. It's not part of the conversation. And so the biggest change I would see is asking all of you here, whether you're disabled or non-disabled, to start being accomplices and practice allyship in talking about disability as part of diversity in every aspect of your life.
This is Seif. You can have a lot of resources, which this university should have, but those resources are almost worthless, almost nothing, without the people that stand behind them.
This is Solomon, number 7. Some of y'all, especially up here in the front, saw me freak out when the first person who asked the question mentioned the ACLU. I'm currently interning with the ACLU, and I thought she was going to say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have assumed the gender. I thought they were going to say that the ACLU was asking for people's medical records, and I was like, oh man, I have to organize and shut the ACLU down? This is gonna be crazy. How am I gonna do this? But then that didn't happen, and I was like, woo, because that was a lot of work that I was gonna have to do. So that was one, that happened. The second thing, yeah, I definitely agree, and also to tag on to what Seif just said, resources are nothing if we can't access them. So I think a lot of times what it is, it's inclusion, right? But then it's also being able to access what they are trying to offer. But they should be offering. There were some air quotes in there at various points. So yeah, thank you.
This is Elizabeth, number 6. I don't have a legal background. I'll just say, you don't need my medical records, that's just my motto. But in terms of the second question, for me, the biggest obstacle to inclusion is people wanting us there. And I don't think anyone is consciously thinking, I don't want a disabled person here. But anytime we have to ask for accommodations, we might feel like a burden, or we might be an inconvenience. And remember, these accommodations aren't just being nice. These are our civil rights that our brothers and sisters have fought and died for in some cases. Like, disabled people fought for these for a very long time. So when I deal with faculty members, when I deal with restaurants out in Ann Arbor, seeing that disabled people, number one, we're all going to be disabled, so deal with it. Unless you die young and then, I guess you luck out somehow, no. But you're all going to be where we are at some point. And when you get to this side, there is something very beautiful you learn about the world. There are things we know that non-disabled people don't know. There are ways that we're beautiful that non-disabled people aren't. So want us there. And if you sincerely want us there, all of the inclusion and the logistics will follow.
This is Dr. O, number 5.
We are out of time.
Nope,
so
and I'm just saying thank you, bye.
And Ashley Wiseman has a few closing thoughts for us.
Am I mic'd still? Okay, there we go. I think I heard it turn on. We were having a little side conversation here just at this end of the table. Some of us have time afterwards, so if there are folks who want to stick around, I don't know if all of our panelists are okay for that, but some of us will still be here. So that said, I just want to thank all of you again for being here, and I want to thank our panelists again for sharing their wisdom and their time. Learning from your insights is truly a gift that I know I don't take for granted. So let's give them another round of applause. So by the end of this week, you'll receive a link to the video recording of this event, as well as a feedback survey. We hope that today motivates you to continue learning. We encourage you to make use of the handouts that were provided here and emailed in advance on universal design for learning and how to be an ally to the disabled community. And I'm just going to be selfish and quickly answer that last question. A disability cultural center is the one thing that I would prioritize because I could list a million other things, but a disability cultural center would serve as a nexus for helping advance the rights and disability justice here on campus. So Disability Culture Center. So thank you for spending your time with us. Enjoy your day.